Hello, this is Ogama Mathematics teacher. Welcome to Mathematics Gymnasium. Today we are going to discuss one of the funniest concepts of mathematics. I call it funniest because some persons call it almighty formula. The formula that we are going to derive now. They call it almighty formula, and I've heard someone talk about it as so mighty that it can solve any mathematical problem. It is not true. It can only solve quadratic equation, and that is all. So let us solve a quadratic equation or quadratic equations using completing the square method. For a given quadratic equation, given ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, by solving using completing the square method, the first thing you do is to divide through by the coefficient of the square term if it is not originally 1. So we are now going to have ax squared all over a plus bx all over a plus c all over a equals 0. Even if you divide 0 by a, it will still give you 0. The next thing you do is to transfer the constant term to the right hand side. So we are now left with x squared because a has cancelled a out, plus b over a, let's put it like this so that this would be seen strictly from the point of view of a coefficient of x, then is equal to, when this crosses here, it becomes negative c all over a. That is the next thing you do. Then this is the point where you complete the squares. And how do you complete the squares? Complete the squares by adding square of half of coefficient of x to both sides. Now, what is the coefficient of x? B over a. Half of it will now be 1 over 2 times b over a. Don't forget that it is the square of half of it. Square of half. So meaning that after we obtain the half of it, we will now square it. This is the same thing as b over 2a square. This is what we are going to add to both sides. So it now implies, this is what we are adding to both sides. We now have x squared plus b over a x plus b over 2a squared is equal to b over 2a square minus c over a. So we have completed the square by adding this to b over 2a square to both sides. Now let me explain the reason why I had to push this negative c over a to the back and put this b over 2a in front. The reason is that this is a perfect square, so even if it was negative, the fact that it is going to be squared is an indication that it will automatically be positive. So in order not to make it look awkward, why would we put negative c over a positive b over 2a? It looks awkward. In order to make it look smooth, that's why we have to put it there. So having said so, at this point, we will now factorize the left hand side. Factorizing the left hand side will now look as if we put x and b over 2a square in one bracket, and we simplify the right hand side, which is going to be b squared over 4a squared negative c over a. Okay, now to an average person, it would look as if we just tune the constant, the term b over ax. We have expanded from here. And because this one has a square and this one also has a square, we put both of them in a pair of brackets and keep them here. So, but in actual sense, this is the factorized version of this part. So, we'll carry it along that way. It implies x plus b over 2a all square being equal to, the LCM on the right hand side will be 4a squared, and 4a squared into this will give us 1. 1 times b squared will be b squared. Negative a will go here, 4a. 4a times this will be 4ac. So at this point we have a single fraction here and a single fraction, a single term here. So we are trying to make x the subject of the formula, mind you. So the next thing to be done would be, we take the square root on both sides. So we are now going to have x plus b over 2a square. This square gets rid of this, and that will be positive or negative the square root of b squared negative 4ac everything over 2a. Or better still, let me put it like this first. Over 4a squared. Now, this gets rid of this, and we have x plus b over 2a being equal to positive or negative the square root of b squared negative 4ac. But because 4a squared is a perfect square, the square root will no longer get there. We just put the square root there, which is 2a. So it implies x equals, this one will now go to the other side. We have negative b over 2a positive or negative the square root of b squared negative 4ac over 2a. Now, these are two fractions both having the same denominator. So if we simplify, we're now therefore going to have x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared negative 4ac everything over 2a. Now, this is the quadratic formula. X equals negative b, positive or negative the square root of b squared negative 4ac everything over 2a. This is the quadratic formula that some people call almighty formula. But I can tell you, it can only solve quadratic equation and nothing more. Say for instance, example solve, say, (5x squared plus 7x plus 2 equals 0. Using completing the square method, it implies 5x squared over 5 plus 7x over 5 is equal to negative 2 over 5. That is, we first divide through by the coefficient of the square term to ensure that the coefficient of the square term is 1 if it is not originally 1. In this case, it is not originally 1, so we are dividing through so that it will give us 1. The next thing is to transfer the constant term. Of course, if we divide through by 5, it will still have given us positive 2 over 5. So when we transfer it to the right hand side, it gives us negative 2 over 5. So we are now left with x squared positive 7 over 5 x being equal to negative 2 over 5. You can see how fast we have moved. Then at this point we complete the squares. The squares will now be half of 7 over 5 is 7 over 10. So if we square it, it will now be 7 over 10 squared. So, and that is what we are going to add to both sides. So it implies, I'll just state completing the squares implies x squared plus 7 over 5 x plus 7 over 10 squared is equal to 7 over 10 squared minus 2 over 5. So we'll now factorize the left hand side. That is going to give us x plus 7 over 5. We put both in the bracket and square, being equal to, we simplify the right hand side. 7 squared is 49 over 100 minus 2 over 5. This is, if I simplify this is as good as 40 over 100. If I multiply this by 20 and multiply this by 20, it gives me 40 over 100. So that when I subtract this, I'm just trying to manage space by reason of my knowledge of fractions. So this is going to give me with 9 over 100. If I multiply this, like I said, it's going to give me 40. If I multiply this by 20, it will give me 100. So if both have the same denominator, then I will subtract the 40 here from this, and that will leave me with 9 over 100. So fast forward, we are at the point where we took the square root of both sides. So we are now going to have x plus 7 over 5 all squared. If we take the square root, it gets rid of this, and that will be equal to positive or negative the square root of 9 over 100. Now, the good thing is that 9 is a perfect square and 100 is a perfect square. So if we take the square root, we are now going to be left with x plus 7 over 5 equals positive or negative 3 over 10. The square root of 9 is 3. The square root of 100 is 10. So, when I have x, this is 7 over 10. So, when this crosses here, we now have negative 7 over 10, positive 3 over 10, or negative 7 over 10, negative 3 over 10. So, x now will be equal to, if I add this to this, because they have the same denominator, I will simply add denominators, and that gives us negative 4 over 10, or if I add this, it gives us negative 10 over 10. Therefore, x is equal to negative 2 over 5 or negative 1. These are the solutions of this quadratic equation when solved whichever way, in which case we have decided to solve using completing the square method. So this is how to follow it. Let's follow ourselves on Facebook. Let's subscribe to the YouTube Mathematics Gymnasium. This is Money on Facebook. That is, you see under it, Mathematics Gymnasium Chief Coach. And you can still go to Mathematics Gymnasium. Thank you.